My name is Dennis Kirschbaum. I'm a retired Wisconsin Conservation Warden. I was stationed here at Prairie, Chien, and I also worked in my retirement at Effigy Mountains National Monument as an interpretive ranger. Well, in the Prairie Chien, we're really lucky in that we have a lot of different areas where people can go to see bald eagles actually quite easily. Starting on the south side of town, you have a boat landing that we call the Chien boat landing. In February and through March, which is a good time to come and see the bald eagles, that is the first good spot you want to hit on a tour through the area to see bald eagles. Second spot is right by the Tourist Information Center, located right at Highway 18 and Main Street in the west side of Prairie Chien. Third place is to go out on St. Ferriol Island, or St. Ferriol Island. As you cross the slough to get out to the island, there's a good spot there that eagles can be seen quite readily. Go out on the island, check out the east channel of the Mississippi River, and on the far tree line, and even on the tree line close to the highway or roadway that you're on, you can see a lot of eagles in that location as well. From there, you want to go off the island on Washington Street and watch for eagles at the bridge as you cross the slough again. Take a left on Main Street and head north. When you get north of town, there's a bald eagle's nest about a quarter mile north of a cemetery on the right-hand side, and the eagles have an active nest there, and they should be nesting in there the latter part of January, early February, and on through, and probably have young usually around the end of February, early March. Well, we have a normal flock. We call it a winter flock, and that winter flock is with us through December and January and then into February. Starting in mid-February and on through late March, we have the migration. And those are birds that are coming from further south on the Mississippi River and heading north back to their breeding grounds in Canada, Alaska, northern Minnesota, and Wisconsin. Well, the migration area is generally along the Mississippi River, and it's there because that's where their food source is when they're making that movement. They feed on dead shad and other fish that they can get, and a normal life cycle of shad is they'll die off in the winter time or early spring because of lack of oxygen in the water, and they're back in these impoundment areas, and as the water flows and the fish flow, they come out into open areas where they're easy prey for the eagle to come down and grab a fish and go sit on a perch and have a meal. So they're pretty much staying close to the Mississippi River for that purpose. There may be a few sites inland where the eagles are going for agricultural carrion. It's an area where hogs that are farrowed and don't make it, or other agricultural byproducts that are placed out into fields, and the eagles will feed on those also. Well, there's a lot of them that are roosting. Those that come with us got to have a place to stay at night. And if we're going to have a night wind, say a strong northwest wind, for that nighttime, they're going to go to a different location than what they would go to if it was a no-wind night. Even though it might be 0 degrees, they're still going to go to those spots that are comfortable for them to roost for the night. So there's a couple of different locations, and one of those locations is St. Ferriol Slough, from about the Chien boat landing up to the Washington Street Bridge. And there's been as many as 100 eagles on that slough, and whatever trigger it, sometime in the morning they all decide to get up and go, and they'll all take off and head out to feed. Well, once they come off a roost, and usually in February and March it's about 9 o'clock, 8:30, 9 o'clock. They'll come off a roost, they're going to go someplace to look for food. If they get a good meal right away, then they're going to go sit in a tree someplace and basically digest that meal and rest for a bit, and then they're going to feed again midday, and they'll feed again around 3 o'clock or so, and then back to roost. Now that generally only happens when they decide to stay here for a while. And they stay here for a while if there's a storm to the north, whether it's a snowstorm or an ice storm, or just not weather they really want to get into just yet, because they don't have to hurry north to get to their nest. The local birds that we have here will be nesting, as I said, early on in February and March, where when they get up north they'll start nesting in late March and early April. Well, basically it's the amount of food, which is an important factor, and certainly the nesting cover. The nesting cover is usually big trees where they can build a good-sized nest and not only lay the eggs and hatch them, but also rear the young, because the young are in that nest for a couple months or so as they grow, and then they'll use it as a staging area after the birds learn to fly. The number one thing of coming to view birds is basically bring your binoculars. If you've got a scope, that's even better yet. Wear appropriate clothing, but the biggest thing is to stay in your vehicle. Your vehicle is probably the best blind that you can utilize to allow you to get close enough to see the eagles very easily with a pair of binoculars or even with the naked eye. There's also a couple of spots north of Prairie Chien near Greenmore Lake where you can set up at a parking lot or along the roadway and see at the peak of the migration as many as 500 eagles. And generally that's between 10th of March and the 20th of March. It's all weather dependent, so there's a pretty good gap there. But when the birds start coming, that's a good spot to just go sit in the car and enjoy it. You can do that from a couple of parking lots and boat landing areas in the area on the east side of Greenmore Lake, or go around on the Ambro Road and go to the DNR boat landing right there, where the eagles will be easily seen as well.